All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. We've been off for a couple of weeks. We are pleased to be back. It's a beautiful day outside. It's great weather for football. I know that most people probably will not be watching any football today, with the exception of the Alabama-Tennessee game. But anyway, it's a great day for football. LaToya Townsend is our guest today, Director of Outreach and Development for Office of Family Safety. LaToya, how are you this morning?
Delightful. How are you?
I am great. So what we normally do for the first 2 or 3 minutes as people are getting on is I'll ask you an irrelevant question. But this is more relevant. So when I first got on, I was like, what a nice place you live in. And then you told me that you're actually at the Office of Family Safety, which I have been there and I should have recognized, particularly because there's a green, some type of lizard structure.
Yeah, that was one of your favorite parts.
It was. I think I climbed on that. So tell me, so when I went for a tour of the Office of Family Safety, there was a lot of, there was a tremendous emphasis on doing things that were evidence-based in terms of how it flowed. So tell me a little bit about where you're sitting and kind of why it's structured that way. I know that's more relevant than irrelevant. This is actually really important. Go ahead.
Wonderful. So where I am sitting right now, or virtually sitting, my virtual background, is in the Family Safety Center in what we call our living room area. This area is really significant because the idea behind the Family Justice Center is to function like a super target for victims of interpersonal violence. So rather than go all over the city for services like meeting with a detective, getting an order of protection, connecting to resources that you need, you can come to a one-stop shop for it. And so a lot of people are, home isn't safe for everyone. And so the idea is for clients, when they first come in, Nashville community members come in for services. When they walk into this facility, they immediately get the feeling of being in a safe home. And so what you see behind me is a countertop where we will have coffee and refreshments for clients who are waiting. It's a living room, several living room spaces, all in an open floor plan. The couch you see behind me is facing our play pyramid. And so this area is extremely important because this is where children will play and wait as their parent, more often than not their mother, is receiving services. And so the idea behind the play pyramid is for children to come in and receive so much support that they leave feeling safe, seen, soothed, and secure.
And it's a glass pyramid. So
it is, and it's viewable from all aspects of the building. It's great because as much as it is a great place for children to be, it rejuvenates staff. I love walking out my office and looking down and waving at children in the play pyramid. And it makes it easier for clients who have varying needs to return for services. So, I have young children. And so if the timing isn't right, or if my kids are moody, I think twice about taking them out into the community. And so if I'm a client that's in need of services and my children, have to come with me, we wanted to make sure that the Family Safety Center got rid of any barriers that would exist to make it difficult for a client to come. And so it makes it a lot easier for mom to come in and say, hey, little Johnny, we have to go back to that center. You remember the place with the big green snake and the play area? Don't you want to go back there? And of course, kids are excited. We've had children tell us it's better than Chuck E. Cheese. And so that makes it easier for mom to come back and receive those life-saving services.
Okay. That's really, I think it's very important to understand. And we'll get to more of that because I kind of walk people through just actually walking in and that wall that you have. But we'll hold.
Lovely. I actually have a video I can play for you if you like.
All right. Well, we'll get started, and then I'm gonna ask you a few questions, and then if we could put that video on, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So LaToya Townsend is our guest today, Director of Outreach and Development for the Office of Family Safety. This is October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And that's why we thought LaToya was an appropriate guest to have this month. And there's a lot of things I think people need to understand about what's going on in the city regarding prevention of domestic violence, and then when it occurs, how we handle it. And let's get right into it. I will note that Councilmember Gloria Hauser is on the call today. So welcome, Gloria. So LaToya, the first question I usually ask all my guests is tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? What have you been doing all this time? And how did you end up as the Director of Outreach and Development?
That is a very fun question to answer. Thank you. So again, my name is LaToya Townsend. I'm actually from Detroit, Michigan, where I was born and raised. I moved to Nashville for the first time in 2006 when I graduated college. And then I was just coming down to Nashville to be with my fiance at the time, now husband, who's at Vanderbilt. And so lived here for 5 years, moved to New York for 3 years, got my MSW or Master of Social Work at Columbia University. I had my first child. I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while, but I always had a passion for tackling the injustice that is domestic violence. And so when I decided I wanted to get back into the workforce, I looked for roles that allowed me to provide services in that area. And so I started out as an advocate and therapeutic care coordinator or therapist for the Martha O'Brien Center in East Nashville. And they had a grant with the Metro Office of Family Safety that allowed me to provide therapy at the Martha O'Brien Center and advocacy, specifically targeting clients in the 37206 zip code at the Gene Crow Advocacy Center. And so that was my introduction to the Office of Family Safety. Our department head, Diane Lance, wrote for a federal grant from the Office on Violence Against Women for high-risk programming and training. And I decided to apply for those positions. Myself and my colleague, now Becky Bullard, were hired back in for those roles back in several years ago. It was a while ago. And I've just, my role has evolved in the department, and, I've just been here ever since. I love working with the Office of Family Safety. I always say I'll never, do this work anywhere else in Nashville. I just love this department. I love our leadership. I love the commitment of the mayor's office to ensure we are addressing this very important issue. And my hope is that if I'm ever not doing this work, it's because we don't need to respond to domestic violence anymore, because it's not happening.
Right. So my understanding of not-for-profits and for agencies like yours is eventually to not be needed because it's not happening.
Exactly.
Go back for a second. So you were born in Detroit, Lions, Tigers fan?
I'll tell you, I'm not the biggest sports person. I love the fellowship of it all. I love like tailgating and eating the fun snacks, but that's it. I like the Pistons. I like the Tigers. I think the colors are cool. The Lions, I always hear they have trouble, but I guess I'm a fan by default from being from there. But other than that, I don't have like any diehard allegiance.
Okay. That's all right. Where'd you go to college? I know you went to Columbia for your master's work. Is that right?
I did. I went to Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. And
Rochester, Michigan. Okay.
yeah, so speaking of sports, it used to be the Palace of Auburn Hills was right down the street. So the Detroit Pistons were always nearby, and they would come to Oakland and practice sometimes. So I got to hang out with the Pistons a lot in college.
And did you like your time in New York?
I loved it. I always say I'm going to retire. And when I retire, I'm moving back and be one of those jazzy ladies with the flat glitter shoes trotting through the city. I love it there.
All right. Very good. Okay. So tell me, why don't you tell folks, if they don't know, kind of the history of the Office of Family Safety, as much as you know about it.
Absolutely.
And when did it, because you were talking about it being around years ago, But lately it's become much more, I don't know, it's always been important, but the focus of it has changed, particularly with the new facility that you have.
Mhm. So the Office of Family Safety was born out of a safety and accountability assessment. And so that assessment came out in September 2013. And that was several years of work of volunteers, judges, advocates, survivors, law enforcement, district attorney's office, anyone you would think that would have a vested interest in addressing domestic violence. And so what they looked at was the gaps in service for victims of domestic violence from the moment you call 911 to the moment of, well, to post-conviction. And from that research, they looked at, the 911 calls, law enforcement, court systems, all of that, and came up with a lot of recommendations. The recommendations that essentially birthed the Office of Family Safety are the need for family justice centers. And so our first family justice center is actually not the Family Safety Center, it is the Jim Crow Advocacy Center, or the JCAC, which is located downtown in the Birch Building. And so one of the observations and resulting recommendations was that victims of domestic violence, when there's a criminal case, or if they need an order of protection, which is civil, we need to reduce the barriers for those victims. And so if anyone has been in court, it could be hectic. The courthouse could be hectic, it's busy, the hallways are congested. And for a victim of domestic violence, they may be in a crowded hallway previously. They may be in a hallway with someone that has harmed them, or someone that supports the person that's harmed them after they've driven downtown to pay, $20 to park. And knowing you're facing all those barriers, why would you, that increases the likelihood that victims won't show up. And so here comes the Jim Crow Advocacy Center. So that very similar layout as the FSC, just a little cozier. And rather than wait in court with the folks that may have harmed you or being confused, you're able to wait in our safe facility, receive advocacy services, receive, food, because when you're nervous, the first thing you forget to eat. So food, coffee, books, all of that. We have a relationship with the district attorney's office where the ADAs can come down and meet with clients prior to court time. We have a relationship with the domestic violence judges here in Nashville where the court calls down, or our advocates that are staff in the court will come down and will call and say, we're ready for Ms. Townsend to come up. And then we'll have an advocate escort that victim to court, wait with them, support them. And that drastically increased the amount of clients who did show up for court.
So tell me, do other cities have something like this, like what you're talking about in terms of the Jim Crow facility? Where
there are some. I know there's one in Maryland, I believe, in Maryland, DC area, that is a court-based family justice center. But the Office of Family Safety is really unique in that, and I'm very thankful for this, and that our metro government has found this issue so important to address that we have an entire department dedicated to addressing interpersonal violence. And so that strength is what's unique to Nashville.
So tell people listening, or who may watch eventually this show, the level of anxiety and what your counselors are actually dealing with initially when they're in court. Because there's a whole nother level. We'll step back in a second and go, what happens when they come in your facility? But when they're in court, or they're about to go to court, obviously going to court can be nervous enough for people. Mm-hmm. So what are your counselors experiencing with individuals? What do they see when they're actually dealing with people that are just about ready to go upstairs into a courtroom situation?
So what our advocates are addressing with victims, the most important thing is safety planning.
Mhm.
And so, we're not here to tell people you need to go to court, you need to call the police, you need to go to shelter, you need to prosecute. We are here to support and let people know what their options are and to make sure they're safe. And so we safety plan with every person that comes in our facilities, every victim that comes in our facilities, whether or not they are choosing to engage in any further services. And so we may have clients that have come to court because they've been subpoenaed, but they may say, I'm not interested in any services. And we say, we understand that. Do you mind if we safety plan with you a little bit before you leave? If you don't need this, someone you know does. And so digging in with those clients, safety planning, not just with the assumption that people are leaving relationships, because again, we're not here to tell people what to do. We safety plan around all issues. So whether you are staying in the relationship, you're leaving, you've already left, we intentionally safety plan around all of that. Additionally, we also conduct what is called a danger assessment or risk assessment. And that is very important because that may be the first time a client really hears how much danger they are in. And so our staff will work with the client and say, these are the risk factors associated with domestic violence. People who have answered yes to these questions have an increased likelihood of being seriously injured or murdered. And that's scary. But our advocates are trained in a very trauma responsive way to be able to support clients through that. And that safety planning and risk assessment is especially important because that may be the turning point for a client that makes them want to engage further in services.
Okay. So let's go back, not to the beginning, but to the to how people come to your office. And obviously there is an office because you're sitting in it, but the question would be, how do people who are victims of domestic violence, how do they find you, or how do people assist people who are going through this to find you first? And then, if you don't mind, after that, once they find you, how do they kind of walk their way through the facility that you've got?
Absolutely. So I'll talk about how people find us first, and then I think that would be an excellent time to play the video because it kind of walks you through the system. And so people can find us in a number of ways. We have 2 family justice centers. One is our court-based family justice center, and the other is our community-based family justice center, which is what I'm sitting in right now, the Family Safety Center. The Family Safety Center is located at 610 Murfreesboro Pike. There is a bus stop in front of the center on both sides of the street. It's the Foster Station, Murfreesboro Pike bus line. And so whether or not someone has a vehicle, they're able to get here pretty easily. You don't have to have an appointment to come in for advocacy services. We are open 24/7. Monday through Friday, the Office of Family Safety staffs the Family Safety Center during business hours. And then overnight and on the weekends, we partner with Morningstar Agape to provide that overnight and weekend order of protection assistance. And so a client comes into the Family Safety Center, receives the services they came for. They may have gotten an order of protection. And so in 2 weeks, which is typically how long an emergency, they walk away with their emergency order of protection. But then when that final order court date comes up, they would then go to our court-based Family Justice Center and wait, get any updates on their needs assessed, and then be escorted to court like I've previously described. And so that's kind of how our centers work together. And so now I'm going to go to YouTube and play a video that you'll see more of the Family Safety Center with this video. It is really just a walkthrough of who we are and very quick commercial. It's available on YouTube as well as on our website. And so I'll post the link in the chat as well.
Okay.
And then that way people can share it. And we encourage everyone to follow us on social media, as well as like us on Instagram, Facebook, all those fun places that people like to network. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, can I have permission to share my screen, please?
It's okay by me, but I think Joyce has to do that.
Thank you, Joyce. We're really, it's just a beautiful facility, and it's just such an honor to work with so many nonprofit partners and government partners who are dedicated to addressing this issue. All right, let's see. Joyce, if you don't mind giving me the power to share. If not, we can keep going and I'll play it at the end.
Okay, give me a second here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have to make you a co-host first.
Oh, nice. I'm so honored.
You should be able to do it now.
Okay, perfect. Yep, I am. Let's see. Let me share my sound. Screen 1. Share. All right, and I'm gonna make sure my volume is up and hit play.
Okay.
Nashville is a community of many blessings, with a generous spirit and a willingness to help our neighbors. And right now, behind closed doors, there is an epidemic in our country.
You may want to turn it up
No
if you can.
regard for
Okay,
financial
sorry.
status, creed, race, age, or gender.
Oh, looks like it's all the way up.
Domestic violence. Thousands of families are affected in our community. Thousands. And behind closed doors, those who have experienced interpersonal violence can feel they are alone, with no way out, no promise of safety, no hope for the future. Fear becomes their constant companion. And the support system of helpful and healing services can feel difficult to access, even intimidating. But Nashville is committed to change the course of this epidemic. Metro's Office of Family Safety, alongside partner agencies, has led a visionary effort to create one of the world's largest facilities dedicated to helping survivors and improving offender accountability, the Family Safety Center. Our city now offers a central location where those who have experienced domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, or child abuse can find a safe place. A place that offers healing and hope within a welcoming community of experts. It's free and confidential. The Family Safety Center. Our doors are open, so theirs will be as well.
Okay.
Post the link as well, since there may have been volume issues. So essentially, you walk in our facility, you stop at security, let them know what you're here for. Make sure you're in the right building, because we are located right next door to police headquarters. And so after they verify you are in the right place, they'll escort you through, and our advocates will then begin preparing to provide services to you.
Okay, LaToya, let me stop you. So one of the great things about when you first walk in is that welcome wall. So what is that for people who don't know what it is? You could see it on the video, but yeah.
Yes, that's why I wanted to play it. Thank you for noticing that. So our welcome wall is a beautiful feature in our facility. And so when we were planning the Family Safety Center, we had conversations about whether or not security was going to be in the building, if we were going to have bulletproof glass and all that. And so the decision was made absolutely to have that after the, of course, advisement of survivors, our Survivor Voices Committee. And so to soften that entry so it didn't feel so punitive or sterile and feel like you're walking into a courthouse or a prison, we worked with a local artist who designed a welcome wall that stretches the entire entrance to the building. And so welcome is listed in every language spoken in Nashville public schools. And so no matter who you are, your immigration status, sexual orientation, country of origin, you are welcome in our facility. And so what better way to greet you than for the first thing you see when you walk in our facility to be that beautiful welcome wall.
It's a great thing. And I think it's, you know, as you're talking, it's important for everybody to remember. I mean, we're talking about very serious stuff here. The fact that you all had to figure out whether you needed the bulletproof glass at the front shows how serious this is.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so somebody comes in, individual comes in, and they see the welcome wall, and then they come around, and then they are welcomed by a client advocate or counselor, okay, and take it from there.
Okay, so they are welcomed by an advocate. They let that advocate know what they're here for. The advocate explains our services, explains confidentiality. We're not sharing all of your information. They explain all of the options they have available to them and ask the client if they're interested in those options. And those options can include, you know, of course, a needs assessment, order protection assistance, referrals to our partners, including our shelter providers, because we do not have a shelter on site. However, we work very closely with the YWCA, as well as Agape, Morning Star, and the Mary Parrish Center to provide referrals and soft handoffs to those providers. And so the client, another thing I want to point out about the Family Safety Center is we don't walk the client through the whole building to provide services. So let's say a client comes in and they need order protection and they need a counseling appointment with the Family Intervention Program, which is with MNPD and co-located here. And then their child needs a forensic interview with the Nashville Children's Alliance, who's our child advocacy center, also located on site. Well, instead of dragging that client through the whole building, all the service providers bring the services to the client. So the client never leaves that living room area, with the exception of them going into a client service room that is also in the living room area. And so all those services are brought to the client. When those services have concluded, they're able to leave for the day. The entrance to the building is very discreet. So while we are located on Murfreesboro Pike, the front door is actually around and underneath an overhang. And so you don't see the front door when you first walk in. Jim, I also want to point out that, so a client can walk in here on their own. Law enforcement can also bring clients here, and we encourage that. Oftentimes our Metro Police Department are responding to these very high risk. Over half of all the calls to 911 are domestic related. And so those officers, when they respond to the scene and they find out a client is in need of domestic violence support, they often bring clients directly to us to provide that support.
Okay. I love the idea that well, first, that the individual stays in the one room and that people come to them. Is that an evidence-based practice? Is that something you all picked up on in terms of just making it easier for the individual?
It's definitely trauma responsive. And the idea is that this is about client convenience, not about practitioner convenience. And so when you are traumatized, your sense of wayfinding is off. When you think about being in a hospital and how all the hallways look the same. I was just at the hospital last week with one of my kids with asthma, and I went to grab a bite to eat and I felt pretty calm. Things had settled. I still got lost. And so the idea is for anything that's going to increase anxiety or trauma with the client to be reduced. And so them being in a very comfortable space and us providing the service to them, us being the servant leaders and bringing the service to them is really important.
Okay, it makes total sense to me. Tell me a little bit about, and I like the hospital analogy. I also like the fact that I came to take a tour of the Office of Family Safety and I couldn't find your entrance, just letting you know. Because I kept opening different doors. It's like, no, you're in the wrong place. So tell me about how the kids are, you mentioned that. So the kids they're assessed at the kind of at the same time by an organization on the facility, on the site?
No, not exactly. So I'll describe two scenarios. So if a client is coming here, an adult client is coming here for an order of protection, they may have their children with them. And so the whole, the family unit that's there is the client. The primary client, of course, is more often than not mom, but mom has, if we're not making sure the children are taken care of, mom won't be able to engage in services the way she really needs to enhance her safety. And so we have a number of options available. We have a child trauma specialist that we've hired whose purpose is to ensure we are being trauma responsive with the children that come in, that those children leave feeling safe, seen, soothed, and secure. The children can play in the play pyramid while the caregiver is receiving that support. We have safety plans for children that we request permission from the parents to give to the child and talk through with the child. But with those client service rooms, some of them have a smaller room attached to it that is, a smaller area. Let's say you have a younger child. Like I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. My 8-year-old, I'd probably leave in a play pyramid. 4-year-old, it depends. I might want her a little closer by, but I still don't want her to hear the traumatizing details about why we're here. And so she can be in that play area. She can see me, I can see her. She doesn't hear the scary details of what we're discussing. And I also feel calmer. My trauma symptoms have calmed down or have been reduced because oftentimes abusers will threaten to take children. And so being able for a client to be able to see their children and know that they are safe and being cared for really means a lot to the parents. And so that's that piece. When it comes to the Office of Family Safety's coordination with children, that is how our work engages with them. Now, separately and collaboratively, of course, the Nashville Children's Alliance is co-located in this building. Due to statute reasons, they have a separate entrance, probably one of those doors you tried. And the Nashville Children's Alliance provides therapy and forensic interviews and MDT coordinate or multidisciplinary team coordination for victims of child abuse and severe child neglect. And so it's great for them to be co-located in this facility. We also have a suite area for the Department of Children's Services. And so NCA, or the Nashville Children's Alliance, works very collaboratively with DCS to ensure those cases that they are addressing are, that everyone has their hands around it.
Okay, so a couple of questions came in. Do children or older children, do they ever come in by themselves? Do they know about the center? And I mean, if they're experiencing domestic abuse in some way, do they ever show up on their own?
Typically what happens is they would connect with the trusted adult, or let's say a child's being abused by dad or mom, and dad brings the child in for support and services. So dad may come here to us to apply for an order of protection on behalf of the child. And in that process, we find out they need a referral to the Nashville Children's Alliance, or there needs to be a mandated report to the Department of Children's Services. And we explain all that in the beginning with clients that, yes, we do respect confidentiality. However, in the event that someone lets us know that a child has been harmed, or that they are planning on harming themselves or others. We do have mandated reporting requirements there.
Okay. All right. If a this came in from Councilmember Hauser. If a family comes in, because you're not a shelter, but a family comes in and needs a place to go, and you talked a little bit about that, would you go into, without going into too much detail, because I know you can't, people have a safe place to go. You find them a safe place to go.
So we work with our partners to coordinate that soft handoff. We'll sit and support clients as we connect with our shelter providers to secure a place for them to go. We also safety plan with them. Again, that trauma can make us, you think about when you're extremely stressed out, it's hard to be solutions focused when you're that traumatized. And so you may forget about the options that are available to you. And so it's really great to work with an advocate, because an advocate can talk with you about, okay, it's not safe for you to go home. Do you have a safe, a friend or a family member that's willing to allow you to stay with them a little while? Do you have a resource elsewhere? And the client may have never been asked that or ever even thought about it. And they may say, oh yeah, I could stay with my sister. I could stay, here. And so that could happen. But when you have nowhere else, we are definitely resourceful and will connect clients and support them with connecting with the YWCA, Agape, Mary Pierce Center, et cetera. And those are the specific domestic violence shelters. Because I know we have Safe Haven and the Rescue Mission in town too, but those that specifically address domestic violence, we work very closely with them. So we don't just give you a phone number and say, oh, go call the Y. We definitely connect and provide that soft handoff.
Okay, let me ask you, somebody just asked about pets. And that particularly became a focus of the YW, because
it did.
We were hearing that that some people wouldn't come in because they didn't want to leave their pets.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with that?
So I'm very happy the Y has opened their pet shelter as well, because that, to your point, is exactly what happens. It's very difficult to leave a pet. They're parts of our families. And so at the Weaver Domestic Violence Center, there is a shelter for the pets as well. If someone shows up with a pet on site here at the Family Safety Center, we also have a crate or two on site just for that immediate response. We are here to address the immediate crisis. So more long-term care is what we assist with coordinating. And we also have case managers that work with clients as well. So after they've worked with their advocate, they can be referred for case management services. And similar to what happens at the Y, that coordination and support immediately after the crisis.
Okay. Let me go back to another question I had. Does everybody get a safety plan? Yes. I mean, almost everybody, in terms of just making sure that they know what options are out there and what they need to do.
Absolutely. And those safety plans are individualized. So again, we're not just passing paper. We are working with clients about their unique set of needs, their unique circumstances, and safety planning around that. So it may be things like backing your car in, making sure you have copies of your important documentation, who can you safely give copies of your information to. What is the safe word you have with your children? So in case something happens, they know what to do.
So the safe word it's a word that wouldn't normally be used, but it
Exactly. And of course, it's age appropriate, with cognitive ability. You're not coming up with the safe word with the 2-year-old because they won't understand it. But an older child, like, okay, when mom says, let's go have banana pudding, and mom hates banana pudding, then that means go to the neighbor to call 911 or go hide, etc.
I got it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to switch for just a minute to kind of another topic, which people have been asking about, and that is initially when people first come in to and Office of Family Safety makes that initial contact. How difficult is it to convince people not to go back to that same situation that they just came from?
So again, our goal isn't to convince someone to leave. What we say to clients is we are concerned for your safety and there is help and support available for you. And so we support you no matter what decision you make. That's why that individualized safety planning is important, because if a client not all clients coming in are wanting the relationship to end. They want the violence to stop, because this is someone they care about, someone they love, someone that's a part of their family. And so there's grief associated with that. You know, anytime a relationship ends, it's painful for us. And so that is true, even if someone is a victim of domestic violence. So we're not here to convince people to leave. Of course, we want people not to be in danger at all. And of course, you know, personally, any of my friends that have ever experienced it, my first inclination was to want them to leave. So that's a normal thing for people to want. However, the best way to support folks is to really be there for what they need and respect their agency and be there for them throughout that process. And that is what we do as professionals here at the Office of Family Safety.
Okay, so I probably asked this in reverse, but how do you get people to come in the first place? In the sense of once you get them, once somebody has the courage to come in, or the strength to come in, and then they can talk through different things. It seems like one of the harder parts may be to get people to come in the first place. How do you do that?
So we do that in a number of ways. We work closely with our partners to share information about our services. We speak at engagements like this. We partner with the agencies that clients go to so they can hear about us. We work very closely with our partners like the DA's office and the shelter providers to do cross referrals. And we also reach out to clients. We'll do follow-up calls as well, like, hey, I'm just here to check in on you and make sure you're still safe and let you know what services we offer. Another thing we're proud of, and it came out of the pandemic, but it was a great addition. We never closed our doors during the pandemic, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we had to evolve, of course, to keep everyone safe, including our staff. And so we began offering remote services as well. So a client doesn't even have to come in necessarily. They could call, and we have a live chat feature on our website where you're able to message a real live advocate, not a bot. And you're able to let them know what your needs are. And they are able then, let's say you're getting your feet wet and don't know if you want to come in yet, you're able to live chat us or call us. We can chat you through what the experience will be like and what options are available to you. And that way you're able to make an informed decision and receive that support before you even hit our doors.
Okay. So obviously you have different partners out there, police, DA, there's different groups out there that would say, contact or go to the Office of Family Safety. If people don't necessarily run into those organizations, do you have an outreach program that is more designed for like through churches and other things that can
Absolutely.
Okay. And how does
That's
that
actually under my purview. And
okay.
So we have outreach coordinators that go out into the community, especially our high risk and marginalized populations, to participate in community events, to coordinate community events, tabling and engagement, to give people information about us. So they're not out there, telling people they need orders of protection. They're letting people know what the options are and what services exist. So we partner with any organization that wants us to collaborate with them and offer domestic violence support. We have a robust partnership with the Hispanic Family Foundation, where we have our outreach coordinators there weekly. We've also began a new partnership with the Branch, which is actually a food pantry program, but a lot of people have food insecurity due to lack of safety in the home. And so partnering with those agencies is really vital to us. We do speaking engagements, community events, and we recently, thankful to Metro Government and Metro Council, we recently received funding in this year's budget to hire community-based advocates. And so this facility is beautiful. It's a great place to come receive services, but there are going to be some clients who just do not feel comfortable or don't have the ability to get here, whether that's emotionally or logistically. And so that means we have to go where the people are. And so our community advocates will be providing the same services that we provide in the Family Safety Center, but across the city in different locations like the library, Hispanic Family Foundation, the Martha O'Brien Center, et cetera.
Okay, so somebody asked a question about the pandemic, and you were talking about that before. So obviously you're doing outreach, trying to get the word out. Pandemic, a lot of people sheltered in. Didn't come. But that also may have, I don't know, did it lead to more? Did you see more people needing help during the pandemic because people were more shut in, or did it vary?
What we saw was specifically an increase in the severity of the domestic violence. And so when you think about safer at home orders, home isn't safe for everybody. And so those normal escapes for children and adults, like going to school or going to work, they changed a bit with people working remotely and school being remote. And so all that pressure of being in the home, there's an additional tactic that abusers had, where they, had another element of control over clients and could blame it over over victims rather. And they could blame their control on, I just want to be safe from COVID. And so we did see an increase in that severity. And that's why it was really important for us to offer that remote support. And we continue to offer that as well.
Following up with that, I mean, so how many people on an average day would actually show up at your door?
So that can vary. I'll tell you, in 2021, we had over 13,000 client visits.
Okay.
And that was over 4,000 individual clients. So that's over 4,000 safety plans. We assisted with over 1,500 orders of protection, 1,600 danger assessments, as well as provided strangulation information. And strangulation is a very severe and deadly abusive tactic that is very common. And so we provided over 1,000 strangulation lethality sets of information to clients as well.
And tell people, because I don't know what that means. What is the strangulation? It's what does it mean? What are you providing them with?
Oh, thank you. So what we're providing, that safety planning and danger assessment is extremely important. So strangulation, a lot of people will call it choking, but you choke on a piece of candy. Strangulation is one of the severest forms of domestic violence because someone is practicing to kill you. If I shove my husband, it's wrong, it's assault, it's abusive, but my intent may not be to murder him. When you're strangling someone, you're trying to kill them. You may not be successful at it, but you are, and it very easily can end that way. And if not, have lifelong health impacts. It increases the likelihood of homicide by 750%. And so that's why it's important to provide clients with information about what strangulation is, what type, encouraging that medical care. Even if they've survived the night, there's still lifelong health impacts that can happen. And not only do we provide that strangulation information to the clients, we provide it to our partners as well. We conduct trainings with our partners so that they're aware of the risk and some of the warning signs that someone may have been strangled.
Is there anything that, are there techniques to, this kind of sounds strange, but to avoid strangulation? Are there things that are taught to people if you're in that situation about how to get out of that situation?
So when we safety play, there aren't really, if someone wants to strangle you, they will attempt that. But we may talk to clients about being careful about the type of jewelry they're wearing when they're around the abuser, or scarves, things like that. But there are a number of ways to strangle a person. So the avoiding, not so much, but just really that encouraging that medical care and the providing education on the dangers of it. So a client may not think it's serious, and then they learn how dangerous it is. And it's like, okay, I need enhanced support and help because I'm in real danger.
Okay. Let me ask you this. This goes back to a question we had before, and it's, so somebody, they find their way to you all, they come in, they see a counselor. How often do they, in order to get a safety plan done or other things, can it all be done on one visit, or does it sometimes take a couple of visits? And if it does, how reluctant are people pretty good about coming back?
They are, but we have a very well-trained, efficient staff. And so you can get a safety plan, a danger assessment, connection to shelter, and a needs assessment all in one visit. And
Okay,
so I'm gonna pull up.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna pull up a report that I'll get. We do a monthly meeting where we review our client visits, and the majority of clients about 2/3 come for one visit, and then we have repeat visits after that, and those are those immediate crisis visits. We have clients after that immediate crisis that have that interim need, that maybe they're on a wait list for counseling, but they still have case management needs. And so we're really thankful that we received funding through the American Rescue Plan to fund a case management program to support those clients after that immediate crisis.
Okay. Okay. How often do men come in?
We see men not as often as women, but we do see them frequently. All of our services are available regardless of your gender. All of our shelter providers are required to provide, and not all of Nashville's shelter providers are required to offer services to men as well. And so that service provision is the same regardless of gender. And of course, violence is violence and abuse is abuse. And so no matter who's inflicting it, we are here to help.
I would guess that the number of men as compared to women is probably lower.
It's significantly lower, but it's not, we see men frequently, but not as on the magnitude as we see women.
Okay. Okay, so we've got about a little less than 10 minutes left. A couple more questions. Particularly, I am, I'm interested in, because you do provide such an important service, and there are other groups that do the same thing about getting people in. So you had mentioned a little bit before that it's 24/7. A little bit more about, after hours, on holidays, because, it's always, we used to say, particularly as council members, we would get emergency calls at 5:30 on Friday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like, okay, how do we deal with this, and what number do we call? Emergencies and violence and things happen to people after hours, not 8 to 5, and they happen on weekends, they happen on holidays. So if someone were to do that, do they call your number, and then they're rerouted to Morningstar, I think, that is helping you all? How does that work?
So right now, our phone after business hours, it rolls to the Tennessee Domestic Violence Hotline. And independent of that, the Family Safety Center is still open. So if they come in, a client could come in at 2:00 in the morning tonight and work with a advocate that works for Agape to get that an emergency order protection and safety planning. And so, of course, there's not a 2:00 in the morning therapy appointment, but that emergency safety planning and order protection support is available. In addition to that, what they will also do with those clients is ask them for permission to share their information with the Office of Family Safety so that we can conduct follow-up with them to assess for any further needs during business hours.
Okay, so if there was an emergency situation tonight at 2 a.m. and someone needed to go to get some assistance, they can go to the Office of Family Safety. Somebody will be there to let them in. Is that right?
They can come to the Family Safety Center. The Office of Family Safety staff will not be there, but that's the partnership we have with Agape Morningstar. So they provide the overnight and weekend support. In addition to that, the YWCA shelter and hotline is 24/7 as well. And so clients have that option. Let's say they are trying to flee and get straight to shelter, they can contact the YW as well.
Okay, and so that may be our last question overall is, there are different partners out there that work with the Office of Family Safety. How does all that work so that people aren't, because we all deal with this, the idea is you got to make a phone call and then you get referred someplace else. That we don't want that to happen. So how does Office of Family Safety work with other partners to make sure that people get to the right place, they get shelter if that's what they need, they get the right type of assistance?
That's an excellent question. So the Office of Family Safety essentially serves as a convener. We engage all of our partners and reduce the gaps in accountability for offenders and increase the safety for victims. And so we have multidisciplinary team meetings. One of the most robust ones that I've ever heard of is our high risk intervention panel. And so those are weekly calls and monthly meetings where all of those partners come together and we look at the highest risk domestic violence cases in the city and look at how to best respond to those. So a scenario that may happen is a client may be in shelter and may need an order of protection. The YW can communicate with us then that, hey, this client needs an order of protection. We'd like to set up time for them to come over. Or a detective might be on that call and say, I've been having a hard time reaching Miss Townsend. Can you all give me an updated phone number for her? Of course, with confidentiality, we don't just share everyone's information. But what we could do is go back to Miss Townsend and say, hi, the detective on your case has been trying to reach you. I have his phone number for you to call back. Or are you okay with me giving them your phone number your new phone number to reach you? And so we work hard to coordinate that and reduce the confusion with clients. Additionally, we also have these wonderful cards we give clients when they come in, and it's called My Team. And on the back, we write in the name of all their contacts because it can be confusing to know who to call for what. So if they're working with a DA, we write that name on there. We write the name of their detective. We write the name of their advocate, et cetera. So they have that information with them.
Okay. All right. So you all keep working through it. I know that it sounds like you all meet once a month, but you also have good communication lines open throughout.
We do. We have a weekly call as well. For that high risk intervention panel, it's actually a weekly meeting.
Call. Okay.
They have a monthly one that is a bigger meeting, but we have like an advisory weekly panel call to make sure we're robustly responding to those high risk cases.
Okay, very, very good to know. All right, we are pretty much out of time. Tell me one other thing. So if people want to volunteer, if they want to donate, if they want to learn more, what's the best way to do it?
Absolutely. I'm going to actually post a link to our website. It's ofs.nashville.gov. And actually, I'll post the Get Involved link. We have a robust volunteer program where we look for volunteers that assist us with different projects, as well as just not maintenance of the center, but coming in to provide that soft touch with us. We also have a Survivor Voices Committee. So if you are a survivor of domestic violence and are, no longer involved in that relationship, there's been some time where some healing has taken place, you can give back by donating your time and insight to ensure we are always most responsive to victims of interpersonal violence. In addition to that, we also have an Amazon wish list, as well as information on our website on how to provide donations to us. And Courtney Muller, who is our Assistant Director of Engagement, oversees our volunteer, intern, and donations programming. And so I posted a link there in the chat.
Good. So people, if they want to get involved, there's a place to do it. LaToya, thank you. We hit 11 o'clock. LaToya Townsend, Director of Outreach and Development for the Office of Family Safety. Thanks for being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
Lots of good information coming in, or lots of
thank you all so much in the chat. Thank you for all the support.
Lots of good questions, and keep up this very, very important work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We are here. We believe you. If you or someone you know is in need of services, please reach out.
All right, we'll be back next week. We're working on who that's going to be next week, but come join us next week. The sun is out. Hopefully it'll be a really, really pretty day. LaToya, again, thank you. Everyone have a nice weekend. Be safe this week. We'll see you next week. All right.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Vice Mayor.
Bye.